My name is Dorothy Straussbaugh, and I am 34 years old. I can tell you the exact moment a soft holiday morning turned into a cut glass memory, the scent of cinnamon, the hiss of my cheap kettle, and my mother saying, as if it were a prayer, "We won't be able to do Christmas for the kids this year." I didn't argue. I didn't even blink. I just tilted my head, watched steam curl above the kettle, and nodded. I get it, Mom. Groceries were ridiculous. Rent hikes. Everyone had been white-knuckling their budgets. Really, I said, laying my hand over hers. I understand. She even cried a little when she explained it, how it broke her heart that there'd be nothing for the grandkids this year, that we should still do a nice breakfast together. Keep it simple. Be grateful. I believed her. I hugged her at the door and promised to bring cinnamon rolls. Kayla, 6 and still living in the tender center of wonder, woke up early in sparkly pajamas I'd found at a thrift store. The fabric caught the light and made her look like a tiny starfish. I watched her patter into the kitchen, rub her eyes, and smile at the single wrapped present waiting on the table, a little snow globe with a crooked reindeer inside. She shook it so carefully, like she knew it could shatter if she breathed too hard. "I love it," she said. No disappointment, no scrunched up mouth, just simple happiness. I thought, maybe this is enough. Maybe we're okay. We split a cinnamon roll between us. I tried to ignore the way my phone throbbed against the table with notifications, holiday texts, glittering posts, other people's trees, but habit reached for it anyway. A thumb flick, an open app, and then my breath stopped. The video began to autoplay before I could look away. My mother's living room. Not mine, hers. A tree bursting with ornaments, the fireplace roaring, a carpet thick with wrapping paper. The camera angle shook with laughter, and someone, my mother, was filming, giggling like a girl. In a flurry of color, my sister Lindsay's 3 kids tore into boxes heavy with brand names: Apple, Nike, Lego, Beats. One twin lifted a PS5 like he'd found Excalibur. The frame panned, and in the far corner was Mom, face lit like a halo by her phone screen, saying, "Open that one. No, that one." I didn't feel my hands move, but suddenly my toast was down and my phone was closer, the screen a bright wound. Lindsay's caption, "Best Christmas ever." I felt heat in my throat, like I'd swallowed tea that was too hot. It took a full breath to remember I was sitting at my own table, that Kayla's knee bumped mine under it. That morning light still lay soft on our floor. "Is that Grandma's house?" Kayla asked, her voice small and curious. She stared at the video, then at our quiet living room. The cinnamon roll between us shrank into a childish spiral. "Mom, why didn't Santa come to us?" The question scraped something raw inside me. I didn't answer. Couldn't. My fingers were already moving like they'd been trained for this very moment. Screen to screenshot, video frame to gift pile to Mom's laughing face. Swipe to my banking app. There it was, December 3rd, $2,400 transfer to Ellen Straussbaugh. Memo line, "Mortgage, love you." I stared at those 4 words for a very long time, then I opened Facebook again. I posted 2 images, one of my payment, one of their mountain of gifts. Above them, I typed a single word and hit post. Canceled. The sound of the house changed after that. The kettle clicked into its own silence. Kayla's spoon scraped her plate once and then stilled. Far away, in another world, paper tore, kids screamed, and my mother's voice sailed on a tide of delight. In my world, it was just me, a 6-year-old, and the echo left by the word I'd launched into the ether. I put my phone face down. I told myself that would be the end of it. Maybe the point had been made. Maybe I could salvage something tender from the wreckage of this morning. At 8:45 a.m., someone pounded on the door. Not a knock. Fists. I opened it to a flash of uncombed hair, a flapping coat, and my mother's mouth already forming the shape of my name like a weapon. She pushed past me before I could move. "How dare you," she said, voice bright with fury. "How dare you air our private business like that, Dorothy? You don't understand what those children have been through. Lindsay's kids needed a real Christmas. Needed it. And now you've made me look like a liar. You're being petty. You always do this when you're overwhelmed. I looked at her and thought about the way she had cried at my kitchen table, about how there'd be nothing this year and how we'd keep it simple. My anger didn't arrive as fire. It arrived like ice, clear and structured. Kayla stood by the hallway, clutching her reindeer globe to her chest like a witness. "Did you use the mortgage money I sent?" I said quietly, "for their Christmas?" My mother's eyes flicked toward Kayla and then to the floor. She didn't say yes, she didn't say no. Her shoulders rose and fell, and she said something about evening things out, about fairness, about how Lindsay's children had been through so much and would be crushed without a proper mourning. She kept talking like words would save her. A buzzing started behind my left eye. In another life, I would have rushed to soothe her, to say I understand, to take on her guilt and call it mine. In this life, this morning, I walked to the front door and opened it. "Please leave," I said. Her mouth fell open. "Dorothy!" "Leave," I repeated, and stepped aside. She stood still, like she'd reached the edge of a stage and didn't know where to go if there weren't lines waiting for her. Finally, she drew her coat around herself, looked past me to Kayla with a tremble in her voice that was almost convincing, and then she was outside, pounding footsteps, the door closing on her words. The quiet that followed wasn't peace. It was the kind of quiet that remembers noise vividly. I made tea I didn't drink. I set the kettle down very gently. Kayla placed the snow globe carefully on the windowsill and came to lay her head against my side. We stood that way for a while, the two of us, the kettle, the Christmas that wasn't. My phone bled notifications. There were likes, the first comments, a private message from my uncle with a vague "call me," and a message from Ethan, my boyfriend, asking, "You okay? I'm outside if you need me." I almost told him to come in, almost asked for the warm shelter of his arms, his steady breath. But he'd be carrying his own history to my porch, and I didn't want any history except mine and my daughter's in that moment. A second later, a friend request popped up from a woman I didn't know at first glance. Mara, Ethan's ex. The ex who sometimes appeared like a smudge at the edge of our happiness. No message, just the request. The timing needled me, like the universe had decided to set a second tiny fire while the first still smoked. I declined, turned off my data, and put everything face down again. Kayla looked up at me. Her voice was gentle and terribly grown for a 6-year-old. "Mom? Did we do something wrong?" "No, baby," I said and pressed my lips to her hair. "We didn't do anything wrong." I cleaned the counter. I rinsed the knife. I folded the dish towel with a precision I reserve for days when the world is trying to come apart. I would not look at the video again. I would not read the comments or the private attempts to pull me back into the role I'd played for years, the fixer, the giver, the one who knew how to cushion every blow with a deposit and a second smile. When I finally sat, I opened my laptop, not to scroll but to search. An old habit, list to make sense of chaos. I opened a blank document and typed in the way someone might carve words into a table. December accounting. Underneath it, the numbers lined up like little soldiers. Mortgage transfers, grocery orders, phone plan payments, Costco add-ons, gifts, rides, favors, the soft labor of being the strong one. I didn't cry. I didn't need to. The truth had already wet its hands and slapped me awake. Across the room, the snow globe settled. The flurry inside it fell to stillness, and the reindeer stood in his winter forever. I pictured my mother's living room, the hurricane of paper, the blaze in the fireplace, the shiny, spotless faces of all those brand names, and I felt something unhook inside me. Not rage, not even grief. A quiet click, like a lock finding itself. At noon, the light changed. The window pane mirrored the two of us, me with a cup gone cold, Kayla drawing stars on scrap paper. My phone vibrated one more time. Lindsay's story. Some people should stop being bitter and learn to be happy for others. And underneath, her kids holding up a Gucci box like a trophy. I closed my eyes. I could taste sugar and ash. When I opened them, the room looked the same, but the air felt different, like we had stepped into a new house that just happened to wear our furniture. I stood, kissed the top of my daughter's head, and walked to the window. If they want me out of their little fairy tale, I told the glass, my breath fogging a cloud that I wiped away with the side of my hand. They'll get their wish. Not dramatic, not shouted. A simple sentence hung like a small bell in a quiet church. I turned off the kettle. I gathered our dishes. I picked up the phone one last time and muted the world. Then, steady as winter, I began to stop, piece by piece. After that Christmas morning, something in me went still. Not numb, just quiet. I didn't rage post or beg for apologies. I let the silence do the work. The kind of silence that makes people wonder what's coming next. For a week, I didn't hear from my mother. Not a text, not a call. Lindsay didn't message either. They were probably in their group chat deciding how long it would take before Dorothy calmed down. I knew the script. They'd written it for me years ago. I was the dependable one, the strong one, the emotional punching bag with a wallet. But this time the lines had changed. The first thread I pulled was simple. Our family phone plan. I'd added them years ago when Dad retired. 3 lines. Mom, Dad, and Lindsay's oldest, Mason. That morning, while Kayla was watching cartoons, I logged in, scrolled to manage lines, and clicked cancel next to each one. No anger. Just click, click, click. By evening, my mother texted from Lindsay's phone. Mom, our phones just stopped working. Is there an outage? Me. Read. No reply. I made dinner. Fried rice, the kind Kayla loved. She asked why I was smiling while stirring eggs. Because sometimes, sweetie, I told her, quiet is a gift. Next came the Costco account. Another thing I'd set up back when money was tight. I removed every additional user and changed the password. That same afternoon, Dad left a voicemail. His tone was confused, not angry yet. Hey, Dottie. Tried to pick up a few things, and the card didn't go through. Thought maybe there was a mistake. No mistake, I just didn't reply. They still had one lifeline left, their mortgage. I kept paying it through January, not because I wanted to, but because I wanted to see how long they'd keep pretending nothing happened. They didn't say thank you, didn't acknowledge it at all, just cashed it and stayed silent. That silence told me everything. It wasn't guilt, it was calculation. They thought if they waited long enough, I'd get lonely. They thought the quiet would scare me back into place. But quiet had always been my strongest language. By mid-February, I made my next move. Grocery money. For years, Mom had sent her shopping lists every Friday. I'd open the Instacart app and order everything straight to their house. Her little routine of dependence she pretended was just temporary. That week, I didn't order anything. A few days passed before her message came. Hey, sweetie, things have been a little rough lately. If you happen to have anything extra for food this week, we'd really appreciate it. I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back. Kayla says hi. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. No response. It felt like pressing a bruise and realizing it no longer hurt. Later that week, Uncle Tony texted me out of nowhere. Hey, we're planning a birthday dinner for Lindsay next weekend. Thought it'd be nice if we all chipped in. Family thing. I scrolled through Lindsay's page before replying. Gucci perfume, catered food, her kids in matching designer outfits. Then I sent Tony a screenshot of it. No words. He saw it, left me on read. That night, Ethan called. You're quieter than usual, he said softly. I told him what happened, the silence, the slow unraveling. He didn't interrupt, just listened the way I loved him for. After a pause, he said, You know, not everyone would have the strength to stop. Strength? I let out a laugh that sounded more tired than amused. I'm just done being useful. He was quiet for a moment. You're allowed to protect your peace, Dorothy. You're allowed to stop fixing people who broke you. The words sank in, but they didn't settle. I still wasn't sure if peace was something I deserved or something I had to earn. 2 days later, Lindsay texted, Mom said you've been acting weird. You okay? I didn't reply. That night, another message came, longer this time. Look, I know you're upset, but this has gone too far. The kids miss Kayla. I miss her. Let's talk. I read it twice. Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them out loud before sending. I left her on read. A few hours later, a voice message popped up. I didn't want to listen, but curiosity won. Her tone was soft, careful, like she was trying on a new personality. Dorothy, I just don't want things to spiral. Family is family. We should rise above the drama. Her words were sweet, but underneath was the same rot. Rise above meant forgive us without accountability. I blocked her. For the first time in years, my phone stayed still for a whole day. No buzzing, no guilt, just silence. Then a message from Mom again, this time from a new number. Car's making weird noises again. Think it's the transmission. Could you help with the repair? I didn't reply. The next day, Dad called. His voice was calm, too calm, the way he always spoke when he wanted something. Your mother's upset, he started. We just want to talk. No, I said. Dorothy, don't be like that. This isn't healthy. You can't just... That's exactly what I can do. He hesitated. So you're just going to let the house go? Just like that? Yes. Silence. Then a low exhale, the sound of someone realizing they'd lost control of a story. I hung up. 3 days later, Lindsay posted a quote on her story. "Cutting people off doesn't make you heartless, it makes you honest." I laughed out loud. The irony was almost elegant. But that laugh died quickly, because I knew my family. They weren't finished. They'd never accept being ignored. They would find a new angle, a fresh guilt trip, some way to paint me as the villain. What I didn't know was that their next move wouldn't be about me. It would be about Kayla. A cold front swept through that week. The wind howled against our windows like it was warning us. Kayla and I stayed bundled in blankets, eating popcorn and watching old Disney movies. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. But peace, I was learning, is fragile. And my family was about to test exactly how far I'd go to protect it. March arrived with a false sense of calm. The trees were budding early, the air softer, and for a few weeks I let myself believe the silence had turned into peace. Kayla and I started new routines: Saturday pancakes, late night drawing, walks to the park when the light turned gold. It almost felt like we were living someone else's easier life. Until the video. It came on a quiet Sunday morning, 2 weeks before Easter. Kayla's iPad pinged on the coffee table. Normally, only a handful of people could reach her. Me, her teacher, her cousin Mia. I glanced down, saw the sender's name, and froze. "Mom." I hesitated. Maybe, just maybe, it was an apology. It wasn't. When I tapped it open, the screen filled with my mother's cheerful voice. "Okay, kids, say thank you to the Easter Bunny." The camera panned across Lindsay's living room. Walls glittering with pastel decorations, baskets overflowing with candy, toys, even envelopes of cash. The twins squealed as they pulled out gift cards, and my mother laughed behind the camera, so loud it made my stomach twist. Then came the words that carved a hole clean through me. One of the twins asked, "Are we going to see Kayla?" Mom's answer, bright and careless, "No, not this year. Her mommy's being difficult again." I felt Kayla stiffen beside me. She didn't say a word. She just watched, her little face set like stone. When the video ended, she stood up quietly, walked to her room, and closed the door. I sat there, staring at the frozen frame, my mother's smile caught mid-laughter, Lindsay's living room glowing with abundance, and something inside me finally snapped. I wasn't just angry anymore, I was done. Without thinking, I opened my laptop, logged into the mortgage account, and canceled the recurring payment. No warning, no explanation, just click, cancel. Let them figure it out when the bank called. Then I grabbed my phone and called a locksmith. "Change the locks," I said flatly, "today." By evening, every door had a new key. Ethan stopped by later with takeout, his brow furrowed when he saw the work van pulling away. "Dorothy, what happened?" I told him everything. The video, the words, Kayla's face when she heard difficult. He listened quietly, his hand finding mine across the table. "You did the right thing," he said. "They don't deserve another inch of your trust." But the guilt still scraped at me. I'd spent so many years equating silence with cruelty that I had to remind myself, sometimes silence is survival. That night, I found Kayla in bed clutching her reindeer snow globe. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "you okay?" She looked up at me with a question too old for her small face. "Why does Grandma say bad things about you?" I took a breath. "Because sometimes people don't like it when you stop letting them hurt you." She nodded slowly, then said, "Can we just stay here for Easter?" "Yes," I said, "just us." And for a few days it was, until the knock came. It was a Friday afternoon when my phone buzzed. A call from Kayla's school. My stomach tightened. "Ms. Straussbaugh," the secretary began, "your mother came by today." My mother? Yes. She said she was still listed as an emergency contact and wanted to drop off a gift for Kayla. We didn't allow her into the classroom, but she left a bag at the front office. When I picked it up, I found a pastel gift bag stuffed with candy, a doll, and a folded card. Inside, written in her looping handwriting, "Grandma loves you always, no matter what Mommy says." My hands shook. That wasn't love. That was poison dressed in pastel paper. I drove straight home, called the school, and removed her from every contact list. "She's not allowed near my daughter again," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Ever. That night, I blocked her number, then my father's, then Lindsay's, then every cousin who still liked to mediate. No more slow cuts. No more pretending we could mend what had rotted. The next morning, I woke up to a sky the color of slate and a silence so deep it rang in my ears. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for a text or a call or a crisis I needed to fix. Kayla and I dyed eggs that weekend, just the two of us. The kitchen smelled like vinegar and sugar cookies. She laughed when the dye stained her fingertips, and I realized that for the first time in months, she was laughing freely. Later, when she went to bed, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea, watching the streetlights hum. There was no guilt, no ache, no noise from my mother's world bleeding into mine. Just quiet, the kind that doesn't ask for explanation. But as I sat there, my phone buzzed again, a notification from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity made me glance. A photo, a close-up of the gift bag from the school. Same doll, same candy, same card, sitting on someone's kitchen counter. My mother's counter. And underneath it, a caption. You can block blood, but you can't erase it. The chill that ran through me wasn't from the night air. They weren't done. They never would be. And deep down, I realized something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't about money anymore. It was about control, about punishment. And my family had just declared war. Spring came late that year. It was April, but the trees still looked half asleep, their branches bare against a washed-out sky. For the first time in a long time, I thought maybe the quiet would finally stay. The calls had stopped, the messages had dried up, and the air in my house felt breathable again. Until the envelope arrived. It was plain white, tucked between bills and flyers in the mailbox. No return address, just my name written in shaky cursive, Dorothy Straussbaugh. I almost tossed it out with the junk, but something about the handwriting made me pause. It looked deliberate. Inside was a printed document, a will, dated just 1 week prior. My parents' names at the top, their signatures at the bottom. It read, "We, being of sound mind, leave our home, belongings, and all financial assets to our daughter, Lindsay, who has remained faithful and supportive through our final years. No inheritance is to be given to our daughter, Dorothy, who has chosen to separate herself from this family." Taped to the front page was a yellow sticky note. "You made your choice, so did we." I stood at the kitchen counter staring at it, feeling my pulse rise in my throat. I didn't even care about the money. Most of the house had been paid for with my transfers anyway. But seeing my own parents put that on paper, it wasn't about property. It was about humiliation. It was their last attempt to say, "You don't belong." Kayla was coloring at the table. "Mom, you okay?" she asked without looking up. I slid the papers into a folder. "Yeah, baby, just grown-up stuff." But my hands were trembling. 2 days later, the ripple started. Old coworkers began messaging me, polite, cautious, like people tiptoeing around a rumor. "Hey, Dorothy, hope you're okay. Your mom mentioned you were going through a rough time. She said things have been hard since you quit your job?" Each message hit like a slow punch. She was rewriting the story again, and this time she wanted an audience. Then Kayla came home from art class with a flyer for a food drive. A sticky note was attached. "God doesn't turn his back on family. Maybe you shouldn't either." I felt the room tilt. "Who gave you this?" I asked. Kayla frowned. "A nice lady outside the school. She said Grandma misses me." My vision went hot around the edges. That night, I checked our security cameras twice, then 3 times. The driveway lights flickered once before settling. The next morning, I woke up to 10 new emails. Unknown addresses. Some were blank. Others contained old photos, me and Kayla at the park, at the grocery store, at her school play. One included a voice note, distorted but unmistakable, my mother's voice saying, "She'll regret this one day. She'll come back." I opened a new Google Doc and started typing. Evidence log, dates, times, screenshots, everything. Then I called a lawyer. His name was James Fulton, a family attorney Ethan had recommended months ago when I first mentioned cutting them off. I told him everything. The Christmas money, the stalking, the messages, the video at Easter. He didn't flinch. He just nodded slowly and said, "You need a restraining order, Dorothy. This isn't family conflict anymore. It's harassment." Filing the paperwork felt surreal, cold, almost mechanical, but it also felt freeing. When the notice was finally delivered, my mother left a single voicemail. 8 minutes long, sobbing, pleading, twisting guilt into every sentence. "I can't believe you'd do this to us, to your family. We raised you better than this. You're punishing us. Poisoning your daughter against her own grandparents. Do you know how cruel that is?" I didn't listen to the rest. I just deleted it. That night, Kayla crawled into my bed. She hadn't done that in months. "Do you miss Christmas at Grandma's?" I asked quietly, half afraid of her answer. She shook her head. "They didn't like my doll. Simple, honest, enough." I turned off the light and lay there in the dark, realizing that she hadn't asked for them once since I blocked their numbers. The next day, I closed my old Facebook account, the one tied to family threads, group chats, photo albums of birthdays they'd already forgotten. I opened a private one under a different name and added only people who felt safe. Then I made one more change. I filed to have Kayla's last name legally changed, just at school for now. One less breadcrumb for them to follow. Ethan helped me fill out the forms. He didn't try to talk me out of it. He just looked at me and said, "I know you think you're burning bridges, Dorothy, but some bridges need to stay ash." 2 weeks later, a certified letter arrived from a P.O. box in Arizona. Inside was a single printed photo. Me standing in my driveway, holding Kayla's backpack, sunlight in my hair. No note, just proof they were still watching. My lawyer sent it straight to the police. The P.O. box had been opened with a fake ID. Security footage showed a woman matching Lindsay's build. They classified it as stalking. I thought that would be the end. It wasn't. Over the next few days, blocked calls started again. Voicemails filled with static and whispered breathing. Then a text from a spoofed number that read, "She'll hate you when she's older." That same afternoon, the school called again. Someone had tried to pick Kayla up early, claiming to be my mother. She left when asked for ID. When I hung up, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. I called my lawyer first, then the police. We added attempted custodial interference to the file. That night, I sat in Kayla's room watching her sleep, her snow globe glinting softly in the nightlight glow. For months, I'd been cutting cords quietly, hoping the silence would make them fade. Instead, they dug deeper, convinced their control was a form of love. But I was done being their mirror. From now on, I would only reflect what was real. The morning after the police report, I sat in my car outside Kayla's school long after the bell had rung. My coffee had gone cold. I kept replaying the words from the principal. "A woman claiming to be your mother tried to pick Kayla up." That sentence burned itself into me. For years, I'd brushed off the guilt my family threw at me. The accusations, the manipulation, the silent treatments, they all seemed survivable. But this was different. They weren't just playing with me anymore. They were reaching for my child. That afternoon, I called the locksmith again, just to be safe. Every lock, rekeyed. Then I called the lawyer and asked how far the restraining order could extend. He said he'd add Kayla by name. "Make sure it's ironclad," I told him. "They don't get to come near her. Not at school, not at home, not anywhere." That night, I found something that nearly broke me. Kayla was sitting cross-legged on the couch with her old tablet, tracing little hearts on the screen. When she went to brush her teeth, I picked it up to charge it and saw a folder I didn't recognize. It was hidden behind her drawing app, labeled Memories. Inside were voice notes, old photos, and saved messages, all from my family. Things they'd sent months ago, before I blocked them. There were also new ones, uploaded from unknown accounts. I played one. My mother's voice, faint and distorted. "Grandma misses you so much, Kayla. Mommy's just mad right now. She'll calm down. You'll see us soon." Another was from Lindsay, sounding almost gentle. "Hey, sweetheart, we're thinking of you. Tell Mommy to stop being so stubborn. We still love you." My throat closed. I scrolled further. Pictures of Kayla at the park, her first day of school, even one of us on our porch, all taken from a distance. They'd been watching, photographing, waiting. When Kayla came back into the room, she froze, seeing me hold the tablet. "I didn't tell you because," she whispered, "I didn't want you to feel bad." That cracked something deep inside me. "Oh, honey," I said, pulling her into my arms. "It's not your job to protect me." I spent the rest of the night wiping every device, changing every password, and setting up new accounts. Kayla got a new locked tablet with no external messaging at all. I didn't sleep. I stayed at the dining table, documenting everything for my lawyer. Dates, file names, IP addresses when possible. At dawn, I printed copies of everything and slid them into a folder labeled Evidence, level red. I'd been playing defense long enough. Now it was time to build walls they couldn't climb. The weeks that followed blurred into a strange rhythm. Police calls, attorney emails, doorbell alerts. Every sound made me check the window twice. And yet, inside our home, there was peace. A strange, delicate kind of peace. Kayla was thriving. She'd started drawing superheroes again, tiny caped figures standing between sunshine and storms. "This one's us," she said one night, holding up a picture of a woman and a little girl surrounded by a glowing force field. I smiled. "That's pretty accurate." She laughed, and for the first time in months, it didn't sound cautious. Ethan started visiting more often, quiet and steady. He'd bring dinner, fix things around the house, or just sit with me while I sorted through court papers. "You've done everything right," he'd remind me. "Don't let them twist that." But they kept trying. Sometimes through burner accounts with fake names. Sometimes through people I barely knew. An old church friend sending concerned messages. A former neighbor claiming my parents just wanted closure. One night, I got a private message from a newly made account. "Forgiveness is a daughter's duty." I reported it, deleted it, and for the first time, didn't feel even a flicker of guilt. By early summer, the restraining order was officially granted. The police served the notice. The same evening, a storm rolled in. I stood by the window watching lightning crack open the sky, and it felt like the world was exhaling on my behalf. A week later, my lawyer called. "The case is closed for now. If they contact you again, we'll escalate." Closed for now. Not forever, but enough. 4 months later, the world had softened. Kayla was sleeping better, eating better, laughing easily. We moved her to a new school under my maiden name. I changed jobs, remote work, flexible hours. The house was lighter, brighter, quieter. One night, as we baked cookies together, she looked up at me and said, "I like it when it's just us." I smiled, brushing flour from her nose. "Me too, sweetheart." Later, after she fell asleep, I walked through the house, checking the locks out of habit. Everything was still. Outside, the air hummed with crickets instead of fear. I sat by the window, a cup of tea in hand, watching the reflection of our little living room. The glow of Kayla's nightlight, the snow globe on the shelf, the walls finally free of ghosts. I thought of all the things I'd lost. A family that never really existed, money I'd never get back, a house I'd half paid for but didn't own. And then I realized none of that mattered. Because peace wasn't something they could take. Peace was something I'd built with my own 2 hands. They thought my kindness made me weak. They thought silence was surrender. But they never saw that stopping was my strongest move. The next morning, Kayla tugged at my sleeve, her hair still messy from sleep. "Mom," she whispered, "are we safe now?" I crouched down, met her eyes, and said the only thing that felt true. "Yes, baby, we are." She smiled. "Good. Then can we make pancakes?" I laughed softly. "Of course." And as the pan hissed and sunlight filled our kitchen, I realized something profound. I didn't need their approval, or their apology, or their name on a will. All I needed was this: our quiet, our safety, our life rebuilt from the ashes of their control. Kayla looked up as I poured syrup over her plate and whispered, almost like a secret, "I'm glad it's just us." I smiled. "Me too, sweetheart, me too."